are we looking down the barrel of potentially World War III? Well, there are a confluence of major hot points, geopolitical hot points. The Middle East is continuously going up in flames.
There is no sign, has never been any sign whatsoever that that this is a constitutional power that the president has.
Deportation is a political talking point that's in the eye of the beholder regarding voters.
It's Friday, and that means another regular edition, albeit an emergency edition, of Real Polling in Real Time with Zogby. I'm John Zogby, and I'm here, as always, with my son, Jeremy Zogby. How you doing this week?
Hey, Dad. I'm doing all right. How about you?
I'm doing okay. But, by way of a preface, we poll and we let the numbers speak for themselves. And that's our professional lives. We also have personal lives as well. This is a very troubling day. And I'm going to try to lead today by not going into a rant, because I'm very troubled by a lot of things that I see. But let me set the table, okay? So first and foremost, the American people have been speaking right along, and they have given us every indication, with the exception of a majority of Republicans, that they are not in favor of mass deportations. What do we get? We get mass deportations. Secondly, America supports Israel, but the support for Israel has been waning, and the support, especially among younger people, for Palestinians, for the residents of Gaza, have been growing. But what do we get? We get really, and I can't mince words, we get ethnic cleansing. We get bunching people together, starving, with their hands out for aid, and then we have Israel bombing them discriminately, not indiscriminately. Americans supported a nuclear deal with Iran. What do we get? We get an full-scale invasion of military nuclear facilities, residences, and so on in Tehran. This is not what the American people have told us that they want, and this does not in any way, shape, or form make our lives better. There's a lot of anxiety out there. It's been reflected in our polls, but the anxiety is on the ground. It's on the ground in Los Angeles, Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, in Gaza City, and in Kiev, and in places all over the world. And I'm very, very worried and very troubled by it. That's my preface.
Yeah. Well, I mean, things kind of have been coming to a boil for quite a while. And I guess we'll preface it by asking the question, and look, this may sound drastic, but if you just take a look at the sheer volume of discontent and complex events that could spiral out of control just over these last 5 years, then I don't think it's an exaggeration to ask the question, are we looking at World War III on the international front and something of a Civil War 2.0, not necessarily trench warfare and battlefields like Bull Run and Gettysburg, but a larger scale of what we see in LA. And so I'll tackle those two things. First and foremost, I think the mass deportation, right? This is related to LA. Mass deportation is a political talking point that's in the eye of the beholder regarding voters. Some voters may think that Trump is capable of deporting hundreds of thousands or millions of illegal immigrants. Others may say, well, just the criminals who are caught, or the criminals who are suspect. And so somewhere in between, there's a vast interpretation of those two very different things. The reality is, when it comes to the president's policy of the southern border, border policy and immigration, the last polling that we had, this was his strong point. What happens after LA? I don't know. We'll have data in 2 weeks. We will see, but I'm not going to make any prediction. My sense is it'll probably hold. It may drop a little bit, but I think there are two vast different interpretations of the phenomenon of deportations, and I don't think millions and hundreds of thousands of deportations is possible, but coordinated busts, if you will, throughout cities, a different story. But what's happening in LA reminds me of what happened in Minneapolis of 2020. And I do see that potential for that anger from the opposition to boil over. And this summer is going to be very telling on the other major issue, as per last night and the Israeli invasion. This is not to be taken lightly, especially when I asked a question, are we looking down the barrel of potentially World War III? Well, there are confluence of major hot points, geopolitical hot points. Ukraine has intensified. I would say the Chinese and Taiwanese situation appears to have subsided, but that's still there. No doubt about it, the Middle East is continuously going up in flames. Israel has launched full-blown wars in Gaza. It has had strikes in southern Lebanon, throughout the nation of Lebanon, even some strikes in Syria, and now Iran. And understand the backdrop to all of this goes back to 1996 in a paper that was written by Netanyahu called A Clean Break, which argued for regime change in 7 countries. Are you ready for what those 7 countries were that Bibi Netanyahu proposed to topple? In 96, he wrote about doing it in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in Syria, in Lebanon, in Libya, and of course, Iran. Okay, that's 6 of the 7. I think maybe the 7th was Somalia or Sudan. I can't remember. But all of those countries have experienced, with exception to Iran, have experienced war and government toppling or regime change. And this is the fulfillment. And so, there's an old saying that past behavior is the best indicator of future behavior. And the state of Israel and the IDF are in full-blown war mode. They have been since the fall of 2023. I don't see how they turn it back. And if they continue, right, because these weren't surgical strikes, these were pretty, massive strikes, as I understand it, and we're waiting for what the response is. This could get out of control real quick. And other than looking at polling data, look at the markets. Look at how gold, the price of gold, plays into this, because it's seen as a safe haven asset. And as investors may want to abandon other assets, they may go to that. So if you see the price of gold going up, there is fear for the future. And that's a historic norm. So that's about all I'm going to say. We're going to have more clarity when we field our next poll in 2 weeks to see where voters are at. But a lot is going to happen between now and these next 2 weeks, and it's pretty critical.
Okay, thanks for that perspective. I'm just going to cherry pick some responses. So, when we talk about, first of all, immigration and mass deportations, we're talking about constitutional issues and in a number of respects. First and foremost is the fact that the president, without a national emergency, has nationalized the federal guard, the National Guard, and called in the United States military to deal with a domestic crisis. There is no sign, has never been any sign whatsoever that this is a constitutional power that the president has. President can call and federalize the National Guard, but it has to be in response to um, uh, some kind of a federal issue. Secondly, is that the demonstrators are that the U.S. military is there as much to quell the demonstrations and to arrest protesters as it is, to protect ICE and the local police and so on. That's a whole other issue. Is that the local police in Los Angeles are saying there was no crisis here. We did not need the president's intervention. In many ways, this has made things worse. So we have a constitutional crisis. We have a freedom of speech crisis. As far as World War III is concerned, you put all the pieces together, but there are still some things that are missing. In both World War I and World War II, we had grand alliances, which meant that if one was attacked, one side was involved in a crisis, the other allies rallied to the fore. In this instance, the United States has taken publicly a wait and see or a standoffish attitude, although it's hard to believe there wasn't a green light to Israel, and those are U.S. made weapons for the most part that are being utilized. But notice, please, China can fulfill its mission, can fulfill its Silk Road and its economic hegemony without firing a shot and letting Israel and the United States do its work. It's not going to get involved. Russia is busy, too busy with Ukraine. The real flashpoint there is Russia versus Europe, as opposed to the United States and China, the two superpowers that remain. We don't have the ingredients for World War III, but we have the ingredients for, as you point out, a remake of the map of the Middle East. And I have to note that when you talk about Bibi's memo from 1996, were any of those countries successful where there was an attempt at regime change? Whether the regime changed or not, you can make the argument that the situation in every one of those countries is worse today than it was almost 30 years ago.
Absolutely.
And so, with that said, this is not a happy time. We're going to continue to do what we do. We'll have some fresh polling numbers as soon as we get them. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, I'll just close by saying the response made by Iran will probably determine whether this turns into a world war or not. Of course, we have to understand that in 2025, a world war doesn't have to, probably will not look anything like 1914 and 1942 or 39 or 45. This is an entirely different playing field in terms of those things. But I guess I should just throw it out there. What's on the front of my mind in watching closely how Iran responds is things like the Strait of Hormuz, which, if that's closed, that kind of inches us towards a world war. But we won't get ahead of ourselves. We'll go into this weekend and see how things play out, and we'll be back next week to see where we are and where it's going.
Okay, thanks. Have a good week.
Thank you. Have a good one.